Welcome back, my dear leaders. I hope you had a very fruitful and relaxing break. Ladies and gentlemen, the great general of the Indian Army, the father of Indian armor, General Hanut Singh Saab said, any fool can be uncomfortable. It takes a wise man to live well. In this pandemic that has made everybody uncomfortable, everybody has suffered, but some wise people will find their way through to live well. Wise humans will find their way to live well and will make the most of this opportunity. In line with that, we have a CXO power panel with 6 CXOs talking about lead with learning. A crisis is too good an opportunity to waste. This quote, ladies and gentlemen, is attributed to Winston Churchill. They say he said it in the late or the mid 1940s, but a book has quoted this statement in 1934. Irrespective of who said it and who is attributed it to, the statement is very powerful. Lead with learning. A crisis is too good an opportunity to waste. These CXOs talk about what did they experience in the pandemic? What did they do? How did they respond? What has changed? How are they using this as an opportunity? What investments are they making? What are the learnings? The discussion, ladies and gentlemen, is led by Sapnesh Lala, CEO NIIT Limited. Joining him are Brian Bade, Chief Executive, Reliance Retail Limited; George Matakal, President, Asia Pacific Global Delivery Centers of Excellence, CGI; Kamaljeet Java, MD and CEO, Daikin India; Sumit Sood, Head, Asia Pacific Global Logic; Virat Diwanji, Group President, Retail Liability and Branch Banking, Kotak Mahindra Bank. Over to you, Sapne.
Thanks, Dilip, and thanks everyone for joining and taking time out to join this panel. And thanks over 430 participants who have taken time out to join and learn from everyone's learnings. Uh, like Dilip pointed out, lead with learning. A crisis is too good an opportunity to waste. I know each one of you in your own businesses have seen either transformation or acceleration of transformations that was already in play. I think what will be great is if you can spend, each one of you can spend maybe a few minutes uh, laying down context of how you looked at change, how you looked at the crisis, how you inspired your teams to take action, how did you equip your teams to take action, and then maybe we will spend a few minutes in a conversation on what did we learn out of this and what are our reflections as we look back to what we did. So maybe I'll start with you, Brian. If you can spend a few minutes talking about how you looked at inspiring your team to act. How did you equip them to transform, and where have you reached in your journey?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with everybody today, virtually. So, uh, this pandemic was extremely challenging. Certainly, it was challenging for everybody, both physically, mentally, as well. And our corporation is still working from home. So obviously, we're still at home right now. But we have so many stores, and those stores are not able to work at home. So obviously, we're trying to support our stores, and they started opening up, as most people would know, sometime in late May, and kept on through the monsoon season, and now most, I think all are just about opening that. So we weren't able to go to the office, and obviously there were lots of things that we wanted to make sure. The biggest one is that we're able to serve customers, but the real challenge was being able to do it safely, not just for the customer, but obviously them were, they were, first concern, and our employees, though, they were obviously just as important. And we didn't want to put anyone at risk, or certainly we didn't want to take a chance to, to spread the COVID any further than it already had been spreading. I mean, obviously, it's very, very tricky. So, really teaching people to use the COVID standards to, to make a place where customers feel safe was good. But certainly, a lot of customers were not able to come to the stores. And when we went into the lockdown, we had things like e-commerce available, but obviously that took several days to get to the customers. And once the store started opening, a lot of this products we sell, they would need, right away. Could be a phone, could be a refrigerator, could be, a lot of things that were, that were critical to get to the customers. So we quickly, I'd say one example of something that we had to really rally the team behind is we very quickly had to figure out, well, how do we, provide safer opportunities to customers so that they feel comfortable while still, like I said, keeping our employees safe. So I just kind of highlight, I guess, one thing that we developed, during the COVID crisis, and that was we offered a ship from our stores, which basically meant a customer could get all the same benefits of going to one of our stores, but obviously have it brought to the home. And a lot of the products we carry are a little complex and complicated, so we wanted to send out store personnel, to be able to do that. Now, at the time when we started this, we didn't have that technology available. So, typically we would ship from an e-commerce distribution center, and it would be brought via courier. But that did not give customers the opportunity to ask questions, or did not give them the opportunity to really, set the products up or have help doing that. So what we did is we had to partner with the stores. We had to make sure that they understood the importance of safety for themselves and customers, as I said several times. And we had our actual employees deliver products from the store, so they would offer the same level of service, but in the safety of our customers' homes. And that turned out to be a very, very popular model, especially early goings here. I mean, later on, as things progressed, even now, people do go back to the stores more often, but we didn't want to miss the opportunity. So we also had to really spend some time developing a new technology. Once we had the technology developed and available for use, we had to train our associates on how to use it. And all this, we had to do without, the use of our typical way of training people live, on hand, hands-on, showing them how to use, well, this is how you do it, and this is how it happens. So clearly we didn't have the chance to do any of that. We had to do it all virtually, which that in of itself provided a lot of challenges. And but really by, I think, about June 1st, we were able to launch it. And by the end of June, we were able to guarantee a 3-hour time window for customers. So, if they lived in the radius of one of our stores, within, let's say, I think a 15-kilometer radius, that, they could go online or call the store, whichever they wanted to do, and select what they wanted, and ask their questions, and select the product. Someone would bring it out to them within 3 hours, and then they would even unbox the product and show them how to use it. If it was a phone, they might switch it over, or if it was a small domestic appliance or a microwave, they would teach them, how it all worked and everything. And it worked out really well. We had a huge response. So typically, like the sales we do online, were a small portion of our business. Within about a 5 or 6 week period, they went up about 100-fold. So 100 times what they had been doing before. It still remains a big component of what we offer to folks, and still is very, very popular. But like I said, people are converging out to the stores a little more, but certainly for the folks that fall into that bracket of, where they're more susceptible to disease, we wanted to make sure and offer this. So I guess this is the example, that I would give as something that we developed within about a month's period of time, trained our entire sales force, rolled it out, and now it's become a huge component of, what we're able to provide for people. We're very proud of the fact that we were able to do this with a very, very low percentage of our associates falling ill to the COVID. But even the people that actually went to the homes have even a lower percentage than the average. So we're very, very proud of that. And certainly we never had an issue with a customer that got sick that we know of. And so far it's been a great success. So I'd probably use that example as my best one, as something that would kind of say, well, let's not let a crisis go to waste.
Technology, you transformed your customer journey, and I guess your back was against the wall. You did it within a matter of weeks rather than what might take months. You were able to achieve it in weeks, and kept the business going, and probably growing, and meeting needs of your customers. So thanks for sharing. Uh,
Sure.
George, your organization not only probably did it for themselves, but you probably enabled many customers like Brian achieve some of the transformations which were led by technology. So, if you want to spend a minute on how CGI or how at CGI you inspired your own associates as well as your customers to act and benefit from their actions.
Yeah, thank you, Sapnesh, and appreciate the opportunity to join you here on this panel today. And in fact, just as you posed in the question there, as Brian was speaking, I was just thinking, this is, we were sort of the enabler to a lot of our customers, and we have among our customers, the largest retailers, the largest banks, the largest telecom providers across the world, and certainly as we got hit with this pandemic, everything that we did had to sort of it was not just about moving our operations and being able to continue them, but it was about enabling our clients to be able to do that, right? So what we found is that as we got into this, there was certainly a bit of a step back by our clients to sort of just get themselves together, get their operations going in this pandemic environment, some of which Brian described so well. But very quickly it became apparent to us, just like he said, that many of our clients who were already on sort of I would say a slow digital transformation journey, that there was a need to really accelerate that, right? So as we actually every year from January to April, we do a survey of all of our customers at the CXO level, about 1,400 customers. We were right in the middle of that, and as we call it the voice of our clients, and we get inputs from our client executives, which sort of that information informs our strategic planning process that kicks off in the May-June timeframe. And since the pandemic happened in March, we were able to leverage this exercise to really see what our clients were telling us, right? And what we saw is that our clients wanted cost savings, but at the same time they didn't want to slow down their digital transformation, right? They wanted to actually accelerate it, because the transformation is what was going to enable them to offer the kind of new services and new ways of reaching out to their customers. And so we sort of had to respond to that. And it wasn't just about taking new offerings and capabilities to our customers, but also it required us as a company to rapidly transform ourselves, right? So over the past 10 months, I've got to say, Sapnesh, that we have really completely transformed the way we work, from everybody being in the office, 14,000, 15,000 people, going all the way from, being in the office to completely being at home. And we're doing things today that if I had suggested a year ago some of these things, all of my folks would have looked at me and said, George, you're nuts. We can't do that. It's never going to work. And so how did we do that, right? So really, in terms of how CGI responded to the pandemic and the rapidly evolving needs of our clients, we quickly came up with sort of a framework, and we call it sort of had three phases to it, which was respond, rebound, and reinvent, right? So it's a three-phased approach that helped us to evaluate and prioritize the needs of our customers, as well as to drive our own internal transformation. So let me just quickly go through those. So in the respond phase, the immediate priority was to just transform ourselves from an almost entirely office-based operation to fully work from home mode. So, and we had to do this rapidly, as a lot of the work that we do for our customers, as you can imagine, is mission critical, right? We couldn't let the ball drop, and with the increased load on our clients' digital systems and the infrastructure, business agility was really key there. So this was a phase where we really needed to lead with learning, as the title of your panel discussion says. So we rolled out rapidly. We realized that some of the collaboration tools we had were not sufficient for the kind of volume and the scale of what we were doing. And so we rolled out, for example, just to cite one example, we rolled out Microsoft Teams in a matter of just a couple of weeks to our entire company. That's 78,000 people globally. So you had to do everything fast, where that would have normally been, I don't know, a months-long project. In the past, we would have done pilots and pilots after pilots. We just had to get it done, right? Training for our members and how to work virtually, right? The fundamentals of working from home, focusing on security and privacy, which was really very important to a lot of our clients who are used to having all their work delivered from highly secure environments, and now you had thousands of people delivering it from home. Training for our leaders and how to lead and how to engage with their members. So once we got that, then we got into what we call the rebound phase, which was a realization that this was not a short-term situation. It was not like your typical BCP, business continuity situation that's going to go away in a couple of weeks, but it was going to be there for months, maybe a year or longer, right? So we had to help and our customers were now in the period of their minds were in the mode of thinking about how do they bounce back onto the path of their transformation journeys. And so we had to do a lot of things, especially in the learning aspects, to move to 100% virtual format in all of our learnings, and we had to do that very rapidly. We had to move all of our employee engagement into virtual channels. We had to help our customers rebound. To help them rebound required us to accelerate the reskilling, the digital reskilling of our employees, which was something that we were already doing, but we were sort of doing it at a gradual pace, a few hundred here and there, and we had to just ramp that up rapidly. We launched a digital foundation program for all of our employees, collaborating with our partners, and we further invested in leadership, in virtual leadership development programs for all of our leaders. And then a couple of months before the pandemic, we had invested in a completely new digital learning experience platform that we call CGI Academia to drive this culture of learning and make it readily available, as well as more digital, more new age kind of thing. And during the pandemic, our 14,000 members really leveraged some of the extra time they had of not having to travel into the office to really leverage. We had our employees earned some 300,000 badges on this platform in a very short period of time. And then moving ahead very quickly to the reinvent phase, which is where our clients were now switching to new business models, some of what Brian was talking about, and we had to change the entire way of working, right? So even things like initially the concern was, well, the business is going to go down, let's stop all the hiring, and then it went from that to, oh my goodness, the work is coming in. We've got to get people on board in a lockdown environment. So going from, going to complete sort of virtual interview processes and virtual onboarding and virtual orientation trainings and the whole onboarding of people. How do you get laptops and equipment to their homes? And it was a big change. And even for example, Sapnish, we partnered with your organization NIIT to really revamp our entire grad training program, which is a 16-week program that we had jointly designed, and we went completely virtual with that, because now we had to start bringing in hundreds of grads in towards the latter part of the year. So our journey was really all about initially responding and then rebounding and then finally reinventing the way we work. And this in turn allowed us to really help our clients as their trusted partner on their own journey of transformation.
Executed that journey so well. The way you made it sounded like it was really well planned. But I'm sure when you were in the trenches, there was a lot of sweat and tears, but then a lot of joy as well. Kanwaljit, you obviously at Daikin were ready for a great season when it appeared like the season was taken away from you. How did you and Daikin respond to this crisis, and how did you motivate your organization to not fall back but then lead?
Sapnesh, I think good afternoon to this August audience. I'm very excited to be part of this panel to share the dais with such eminent speakers across industry representative in course of this conference. Well, as my other panelists have said, that this pandemic was something that world has never seen before, with integrated economies, with the supply chain, with obvious after effects that weaker the marginal players were forced to exit, and those that remained had a level playing field. Have experienced this in personal interaction with colleagues across industries. The key message has emerged very clearly from all this conversation is that never waste the opportunity of this crisis. The change accompanying is bound to bring in new players who are competent and thus bring in net addition of value to society and humankind. Indeed, as an organization across globe are coming to terms with pandemic, there was a sense of urgency and realization for businesses to accelerate business performance at scale and adopt to new ways of working, develop new capabilities, and adopt new technologies in recognition of changing business model. Historically, industries have focused on benchmarking, re-engineering, continuous improvement, total quality management. These have been proven vital for survival. But getting better at what we do is just about keeping ourselves in a race. It's not about winning the race. To win, companies need to get ahead of the competition, decide where they should be going and making sure get there first. And this pandemic brought to the fore the assumption and forced evaluation of existing models to find ways to grow businesses. What this pandemic has reiterated is that need for business to continuously evolve, adapt, and change to align with business circumstances while working collaboratively with your value chain of dealers, distributors, customers, employees, and suppliers. Change is inevitable whether you look from point of view of investor, employees, or customers who want new functionalities, new benefits, new value propositions, and new price performance relationship. Like George said, even this pandemic also accelerated adoption and integration of digital medium in day-to-day life, with Microsoft Teams, Zooms becoming de facto platform, as well as work from home have become accepted norms amongst industries in harnessing tremendous potential of employees towards achievement of common goals. Most importantly, we also recognize that despite move to digital, delivery of service will remain analog, and hence we invested over 1 lakh man hours in training technicians, the service engineers who are our extended arms, aimed at upgrading their knowledge, thus helping us to meet the last mile metric of customer satisfaction. Critical factor in all this journey was empathy with employees, because safety was the first criteria. And vendors, if supplier has to come back when the free lockdown opened, I mean, the frequent communication often to the extent of over communicating, probably. So, the above steps, in our view, were outcome of information synthesis on softer aspects of work style, lifestyle, demographics, customer preferences with tangible integrations, component of technology wired in, whilst also considering usual unpredictable issue of politics and deregulations. Having said that, we also worked on 3 R's, like my friend George said. That having said that, my thought on leadership lessons were from this pandemic: resolves of the management to see through these difficult times, with the employees getting their confidence, and vendors, and also the channel partners. We have close to about 10,000 channel partners, apart from the regional retail and the national retail outlets. The second R was resilience and flexibility, acknowledging that current situation is tough, but having confidence in the abilities to turn the tide by taking steps as given below. So there were very motivational lectures from experts within leadership team, and reimagine the third R, the business model. Except the traditional office as well as business model might not be applicable in the new world. and take steps to address the imbalance to return back to sustainable business ASAP. So one major task, which was acceleration of adoption of digital solutions, empathizing with customer and making his or her journey easier during transactions. It is during these times that companies' value systems are just put to the test. There was leadership teams at the zonal levels which were empowered to take appropriate action because from the corporate offices people could not travel, and be tolerant for failures. We were empathizing and supporting all our employees during this transition period, and the message was communicate, communicate, communicate. Demonstrated the strategic intent, though this is not the exhaustive list, but this will help companies stay course for put them on a way to success. So I think in summary, if you look at it, I think listed on Fortune 500 companies that appear on the list are ones who continuously change the rules of the game and staying ahead of the competition, one step ahead of them. They are moving ahead of companies and taking controls. Companies can't grow if they are not willing to change. The opportunities are there for everyone, but capturing new business opportunities need a new mindset, shared strategic intent, and ability to de-risk opportunities and unlearning from the past, and global preemption with the agility. So as a company, we took decisive steps to prune overheads, eliminate unwanted costs, but most importantly, we decided to continue our core values on CSR initiative. We relooked at our supply chain, helped willing suppliers set up base in India, took conscious decision to focus on project closures to maintain cash flow, expanded our businesses line via considered M&A opportunities, and supported the business by investment in technology. So this is what we did, and I think this was all the time the positivity on top of our mind, that how do we convert the adversity into advantage. Lastly, I dare say that the cost of this crisis was too high and way too high to let it go to waste. So we tried to encash every opportunity which was available on this earth at that time. Thank you.
You did a lot, and a lot successfully. So thanks for sharing. Sumit, as you looked at your customers and specifically with your focus on design and architecting, how were you able to enable your customers to not just look at technology as an enabler, but design and architecting as a method of differentiating?
Sure. So, Sapnesh, thanks for the opportunity. And first of all, I would say let's forget Global Logic and the Global Logic customers for a moment. If all of you noticed, I lost my connection in between for like a minute, and that was purely a function of power failure, right? And before the gensets kicked in, my Wi-Fi router had reset. Very interestingly, this is a problem that I'm sure millions of us have as we work from home. We have laptops, so laptop power is not a problem. We either have generators in apartment complexes or inverters in individual homes. So basic power is not a problem, but that UPS need is. And none of us want to buy large UPSs, right? So we just live with this power outage. Well, somebody has made a business opportunity out of this crisis. I actually discovered a young entrepreneur. In fact, I spoke to him this morning, based out of Madurai, who has, who is himself, him and his brother are actually printing circuit boards in their spare time and shipping out products called Nirantar, which for those of you who know Hindi means always. It's a mini UPS that just plugs into your Wi-Fi router, and while the rest of the household kicks back, your UPS is alive. It's a small device, a 1,000 rupee device. So you're not investing in a 18,000-20,000 rupee UPS because you don't need other power. You already have arrangements. All you need is for this Wi-Fi router, and that's an amazing look. Here's somebody who's not letting a crisis go to waste, and has created a good opportunity for himself. And that's inspiring, right? And that's the sort of stuff that this pandemic has thrown all over the place. very similar to the sort of situations that we ended up dealing with our client base. So look, we work, and like George mentioned, right? We are also in the services world, high-tech engineering, and we work with a diverse set of customers. And as the pandemic stuck, for us, the philosophy very quickly changed to, and something that Alvin Toffler wrote in the 70s. The winners of the 21st century will not be the people who can learn, but those who can learn, unlearn, and relearn. Right, and we very quickly realized how relevant this is going to be, and said, hey, what do we need to unlearn? We are just used to a certain way of working. We are zipping all across the globe. We are in a high-touch services environment. Our work that we do is on the front end of our customers' businesses. If it's retail, how are we working with them on designing their endless aisles? How does the technology backbone fit in with their supply chain, warehouses, and we're spending so much time. If it is banking, it's similar thing around customer experiences, watching how their clients are behaving at a branch or at an investment management discussion, and really designing experiences and engineering of the software to go with those experiences. We can't be doing that right now. We honestly took a step back and said, what's going to be big in all of these sectors that we work with, and said, when it comes to retail, touchless, right? A no-touch economy or a low-touch economy is going to become very, very relevant. And we went to the drawing board and said, hey, here are 4 things that we can help enable for our clients, right? How do you enter a store in a touchless fashion, or if you are in a physical office and you want to enter, how do you enable touchless entry, exit, access controls via that? For a retailer like Brian was talking about, when you are delivering out there, and he said, look, customers used to be anxious, lots of phone calls, and they had to work out how do they get shipments across or deliveries across within 3 hours. A lot of our retail clients were actually suddenly looking at themselves as logistics companies, micro logistics, if you will, right? From store to the neighborhood. How do you enable phone and location-based solutions for those folks to be able to park that location in the customer's inbox along with that delivery, as an example? Similarly, in the manufacturing world, which I'm sure, as Kawaljeet and their team at Daikin, as they launched new products during the summer, I'm sure there would have been a few thousands of technicians across the country, or if not more, who would have needed some amount of training on a particular new feature of the product. How do you drive AR, VR driven training solutions for those folks? If there is a new assembly that has to be done on a factory site or on a customer site, how do you use augmented and virtual reality to create those training modules for those workforces? So we really looked at saying, what will enable these interactions when you are not physically with each other, when you are not able to do something on a drawing board, when you're not able to bring hundreds of these technicians in and demonstrate to them in real time. And that really centered around these 3 aspects. We said augmented and virtual reality, very big on geolocation services, and then very big on trust in this digital chain, and that was primarily driven by distributed ledgers and stuff. So for us, as I said, the world turned on its head in terms of what we believed is going to be right for the customers. I think we were, knock on wood, we were fairly bang on with anticipating a bunch of these needs. And then internally with the workforce, we just drove this thing hard. Guys, learn, unlearn, relearn, right? A lot of you are going to have to quickly reinvent yourselves. And we've got around 10,000 engineers who work out of India, around roughly 20,000 globally. I'm sure we had like 500 or 600 who were blockchain experts, but the kind of digital ledger or distributed ledger trust-driven needs that were there needed a lot more. There's a lot more training that happened to make sure that skill got created. Online learning courses, I think George also spoke about some of the academies that those folks had created, big time help. And honestly, a lot of cross-industry collaboration as well, right? I realized that, as an example, in our NCR ecosystem, there are a lot of fellow CEOs who were in a situation where either they had a surplus of skill, and then there were a lot of companies who said, hey, we actually have a demand for certain skills. How do you pool those things together? So in my mind, this crisis apart from these experiences of this young entrepreneur in Madurai and a singularity like Global Logic, it also was an amazing opportunity for the industry or the fraternity to come together. There are lots of amazing examples and experiences of that. So it's been, outside of the human crisis. It's sad, even one life is too many. But outside of the humanitarian crisis, with the amount of deaths that are happening globally, the amount of economy turbulence and joblessness, I think this has also somewhere brought the world closer together. Right. So looking forward to take the positives out of this, and I'm sure there's this crisis. Humanity will not let this crisis go waste. It's just the biggest common challenge that is there in front of all of us. I'm sure we'll come out of it nice.
Go to waste. Thanks, Sumit. Virat, where Sumit left off, banking is all about relationships, and suddenly you couldn't meet anyone face to face. How did your bank, how did your team deal with relationships? How did you transform uh, your business to be able to not just cope up with the crisis, but convert it into an opportunity?
Yeah. Thanks, Sapnesh. Means that was a time before the COVID strike us. Means the financial sector, the economy was what you call struggling. The financial sector were having challenges, and COVID was the last thing which the banking system would have expected to be there. To add to it, if you see, banking was made an essential service, means it had to be open at all point in time for the customers. But at the same time, as we all know, banking is a highly regulated field, and hence it required a lot of changes in the processes and the procedures of part of it, with time always running out and risk always rising. I think those were the three things intertwined, which really made us to sit and think how we're gonna take this challenge. And we had to fight challenges on three fronts. First, the employee. There was a lockdown, there were travel restrictions, means the trains were not there, metros was not available, taking the public transport was not an option. How do you get people into the branches which had to remain open? So that was the one challenge, and of course, the general health related concerns people. The second area was customers, means they all had financial needs, and in this kind of thing, people want to have money up in their pockets. That was the thing. There were business commitments which people would have made, the business people would have made. And the other thing that we realized was that customer behavior and expectation was constantly changing. Means the expectation of some other industry would have been will be superimposed on the banking industry, and that's what you have to meet, because at the end of the day you are in the business of customer relationship and service, and that's where all this, along with the constraints that the employees faced in terms of the lockdown, the travel restrictions, and the general health worries. The third dimension which impacted the banking sector was a regulator, because regulator had to step up in this kind of an environment to really take care of the situation and ensure the economy doesn't go down the drain. And that's where there were a lot of measures that they introduced, like moratorium, waiver of charges, some lending schemes, and all those things you had to do it in a very short span moment it was declared by the regulator. Now, all this called for a transformation, and transformation in terms of relearning and reskilling at all levels. Huge number of people work in the bank. We had to make those changes, adjust to the revised things, and make them adopt to the new things which were required. So, how do we manage? I think what did we learn from it? These were the two things. If you were to ask me, I would divide this entire crisis into three phases. Which everyone has given the words, which I heard some people talking about 3 years. I'm just talking in terms of the two phases, and I'm more on how we experienced it in the phases of this crisis. The first phase, which was immediate response phase, I would call it, which was the first 2 to 3 weeks. In this phase, there was a deeper sense of understanding and solidarity among the people to meet the immediate needs, and that we found both at the employee level as well as at the customer level. What were the challenges? Means in our mind, how do we handle customer financial needs? How do we protect our employees? We protect our customers. How do we make use of technology to provide safe and secure transactions for the customers? What all modifications to the standard processes are required? How do we train our employees on these modified processes? More importantly, how do we go and inform our customers about modified processes? And in doing all this, constant risk assessment of what is the impact overall on the risk aspect of what we are doing. And that's where, even if you think about the, okay, it is a very easy to say that, okay, we will give laptops to our employees to work from home. But this is a banking space. The access to the database has to be controlled. I need to maintain all the safety and security part of it. So while some of the decisions appear to be straightforward, but from banking and the security angle point of view, we had a lot of challenges which we had to tackle even if we offered a technological solution. The second phase, which I would put it as between 30 to next 30 to 90 days, what we realized is the severity of the impact of the crisis, the actions required started becoming more clear. The long-term consequences of the crisis started becoming more perceivable. The decision in this phase was to prepare for a longer duration of uncertainty, and in some cases, banks saw an opportunity to accelerate implementation of changes. Means, you see, we were in the process of making some changes using technology for our giving a customer experience. We saw that as an opportunity and said that can we accelerate this aspect? Okay. So what we did in that phase, okay, first and foremost that we did is identifying key customer journeys from a banking perspective, which we would require to end-to-end digitize it. Okay, and that would make people feel safe and secure with the bank. And one of the example was our digital 811 means end-to-end. The regulator also came to the party, and somewhere in between, it allowed people to do a video KYC. That means you can have a bank account without going out of the home. Investment in technology to ensure smooth operations, because that is the other angle that to think about it. We have huge call centers where hundreds of people work. We had to take a call as to how many people would be allowed, because the what we typically call as an SMS means social distancing, masking, and sanitization. How keeping that protocol in the mind, how many you can bring. If we allow X number of people to operate from home, and the data security and the technology required, because all calls need to be recorded. So those were the challenges where we gradually built up a thing whereby the number of people who started operating from home started going up. One of the things, having learned from that, we now believe we will continue with at least 30 to 40% of the people in the call center to operate out of home, because that gives us a flexibility to have people who want to work part-time to actually take the advantage. Okay. The other thing was the use of CRM next, because we had to have our employees, means what they are doing, the frontline staff, what productivity, what is their output, are they meeting their customers? All those things we had to make sure is available to them. And hence, a very quick rollout of this particular platform, and devising methods whereby all the supervisors would have a very close watch on what's the output and the productivity from their team. More importantly, keep the branches opening. We couldn't ask all the staff to come into the branch, because at any stage somebody may get positive, and then you have to send all others into quarantine. So keeping that factor in mind, what we did is we devised a roster system whereby in every branch we did allow 30 to 40% of the staff to come into the branch at any stage. Then after 3 months time, that's the third phase I call it, we saw people gradually coming back on track and started to live with this risk. The question that started in our minds is, where do we spend our resources first? Because now is the time to take those decisions. Will the creative ideas developed during the crisis be further explored and implemented over the years after the crisis? Because some of them were done to just get over the crisis. Will we be better prepared for a similar challenge in the future? And that was a question which was there at all stages in our mind. And being a bank, how do you help to rebuild the economy? Now, these were Okay, such complex means the things that I'm talking about is a complex things. Answer to this question can often be found by retracting our steps and looking back at what we did best during the past phases of this crisis. Only then we'll be able to capable of factoring in our learnings that include but are not limited to the needs of people, a deeper understanding of what brings about the solidarity and the priorities of the community. If I have to what we call give you the list of the key learnings out, I can say the most efficient practices are often born out of desperation. Sticking to those, however, requires fundamental changes at the behavior level. And this is what today each one of us is thinking about. Will we be able to retain the gains that we did during the crisis? A crisis situation acts as a springboard to change. It brings forward an opportunity to reflect what went wrong and make sure there is some course correction. A crisis also brings out creativity in thought and action because usually one does not have too much of time to bring back things to normal. People learn to make decisions with limited data or whatever data is available. Processing time keeps going down, and people are more willing to change and adopt newer things. And I think that's where we capitalize on. I think the digital adoption of our employees and the customers. I think we would have accelerated it at least 3 to 4 years. Now, behavioral change can only be achieved if it is supported by a strong, stable incentive. Otherwise, people will fall back into the old habits. And we know about this in psychology, and we have experienced this in past as well. So the technology processes and practices developed during this crisis are usually the most efficient and economic. And yet, it is the human tendency to go back to the old ways of doing things. In this process, all the long-term benefits are likely to be lost. The presence of incentive can, however, change that, and we have seen that in the 2008 financial crisis. Some of the change, which are cultural or regulatory, which were brought about, has changed the world forever. And that's the important learning at what kind of incentives both the regulator as well as the cultural things that brought about. Lastly, leading is all about learning and finding the best possible mix, which makes person a more efficient, empathetic, and a trusted leader. Leaders at all levels within the organization has to be willing and adapt to change by reskilling and relearning the and facilitate acceleration of transformation. I think that's the key thing that I would want to share with this audience. Thank you.
You touched upon a number of learnings as well as reflections, and maybe that could be a lead into my next couple of questions to the panel. I think all of us in our comments said that the crisis made us substantially more efficient, substantially more agile, and in many cases also more effective with how we were doing things. Our processes became more effective. Our customers' journeys became more convenient for the customer. We suddenly became more customer focused or customer centric. I think one of the things I wanted to know from each one of you is, for you specifically, what were your top 2 learnings and how you see implementing those learnings going forward as you get into a world where the playbook now of efficiency is already available to the startups. The next organization who's starting their business tomorrow already has learnings from your experiences. So I wanted to, in addition to you commenting on your learnings, also reflect on how you might use these learnings to differentiate yourself from competition, from others who might be starting, so that you can continue to lead. And maybe as you are thinking about the answers, look at the people dimension more than any other dimension. Anyone wants to go first?
Yeah, Sapnesh, I can take a stab at it. This is something that we've thought quite a lot about, right? And see, for two parts to it. One is more the human interaction part of it, right? Interacting with the customers we just have to start getting a lot more comfortable with figuring out collaboration in the digital world. Now that would mean for 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 a tech company like us to eat our own cooking, if you will, right? We have to get a lot more agile with online tools, with multi-location, multi-time zone collaboration, and that's the only way to go forward. Because I'm sure this has also taught us, this crisis has also taught us to do that, or eliminate the need for 100 people zipping all over the globe to get together for a discussion. So, and that's one key big thing from a behavioral perspective. The second part of it is from a tech perspective. I think if we used to all talk of one of our industry peers had given the name SMAC, right? Social Mobile Analytics Cloud, a bunch of years ago, and SMAC's gonna appear in the rear view mirror and receding much more faster than we can ever imagine. Right? The scale at which solutions will comprise of dark technologies, which is digital ledgers, artificial intelligence, augmented and virtual reality enabled with quantum computing, is just going to be massively super aggressive than any one of us has ever imagined so far. And this will apply to manufacturing, this will apply to medtech, this will apply to retail, this will apply across industries, right? Banking is another great sector that's going to pick these up. So I think that the two big learnings, as I said, are how do we start getting very comfortable in dealing with collaboration in a virtual environment, and the software angles to it, right? As COVID has pushed us all apart, it has also brought us together. We are peeking into each other's homes. Right now, all of you and all the 500 people who are locked down are peeking inside my home, my study, my workplace. This is where I spend 12, 13 hours a day sitting and working. So being very comfortable with that, and be preparing for the future in a very different manner. I think we are going to be very, very surprised how quickly this tech sector or the technology adoption across sectors is going to get revolutionized in the next 12, 18, 24 months. And that's also going to challenge, as well as create an amazing opportunity, ongoing opportunity for companies like NIIT, because you folks are big enablers for creating these skills that are adopted globally. So I believe those are 2 or 3 big learnings that we need to take, that we need to be ready with. And it's going to be. I always say the future is dark but bright. Right? It's a dark technology-based ecosystem, but that's going to change humanity, the way we collaborate, the way we do business, the way we manufacture, the way we do banking. It's just going to be fun out there.
Hey, Sapnesh, if I can jump in and just add to that, I think for me, to answer your question from a human, people perspective, probably one of the biggest learnings is that, we, all of us, our teams are much more capable than we might think of, right? So I think there's a lot of things we are able to do that we never thought possible, and I think it's to me it's very important to keep pushing ourselves and set the bar high and higher, and challenge all of our people to rise to the occasion and go further than what they think is possible, right? The crisis sort of forced us into it, but there's no reason why that can't be just part of our business as usual way of operating, right? Always set a challenge that might be tough, but push yourselves to achieve it, and I think we all become operationally much more excellent, strategically much more excellent organizations if we do that.
True. Anyone else wants to comment on
Sure.
relationships? A lot of us are born. Our businesses are around relationships. As you look at doing most of the interactions that were human to human interactions through a virtual medium, to me at least over the last 6 or 8 months, I've seen us burn up relationship capital. How do you start building relationship capital both with your customers as well as your supply chains and your employees?
Oh,
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brian.
Brian, go ahead.
Sorry. I think my internet might be a little slow. I'm not sure. So a couple, I think, you had mentioned, the two things, and then, thinking about that with relationships and that. So I think it's just, I think we had to learn because we weren't in the office, and we thought, maybe you thought you were seeing people on a daily basis, but, you weren't really spending time with people. So I think the real important, lesson that I've learned through this is that, you have your direct reports, and then of course you have a lot of other people, that you interact with, from time to time. And this crisis, because we don't see them in the office, or we don't take for granted that we're going to have that time, I really had to kind of set up calls and talk to a lot of these folks. And when I did that, I really started to learn that I hadn't really been interacting with them at all, at the office. I just saying a hello or a brief sentence here and there wasn't enough. So really finding out, taking the time to have to schedule in and find out, about the people, what are what's going on in their lives, what are they struggling with, how can you help them? And I think kind of this has forced us to do that. And in my mind, it's a good lesson that I don't want to forget, because, I don't want to get back to just going back to the office and kind of staying in a silo and thinking that just a casual contact is the same as having a very good in-depth conversation. So I think that's how I would interpret your question, and that's how I would answer it. It's a very important lesson that I learned. And I think the other real thing that I would just add to it, in my opinion, is if I learned one lesson through this crisis, and maybe it's not so much on the relationships, but I would just say it's urgency. Because when you're forced to do something and you have no choice, you find that you can do things, obviously, at a much greater speed and a much better execution level than you can under normal basis. So a lot of these programs, like the one I described earlier, we had that underway, but we just weren't really taking it too seriously, or there was time for it later. And there's 12 or 15 other projects I can think about that we've had to accelerate forward, that if we knew it was the right thing to do before the lockdown, but just kind of leaving it on the back burner, didn't really help us. And the last thing I would just add to that is I just continue to be amazed at how great people are. People that are the flexibility and the things that people will go through to get the job done and to deliver things for customers, really at all levels. In my opinion, just continues to amaze me, and I'm just been very, very impressed with the people that that I've interacted with, and what they've gone through, and yet still their commitment levels and what they've delivered is just fantastic. So that's what I would add. Thank you.
Make a few comments.
Yeah, what I was trying to tell, especially on this relationship angle, means if I have to put it more aptly, I would say the geography has now become a history. Means on every stage, my relationship guy used to tell me, saying that, okay, how can I close this investment decision without having a cup of tea with that of my customer? And he would usually take 2 or 3 visits to go and do that. My sales manager would talk to me saying, okay, every day morning I need to give them a decision, and by the evening I need to have what they have done. The in-branch conversations and the way in which customers would come and share their happiness or sorrow, whatever it is. Now, all those things were human angle. But this environment brought it whereby we as even leaders, means when we do this through the Zoom calls, means perhaps I was able to reach out to more of my people on the ground rather than remaining in contact with my immediate reports or a layer below. And efficiency improved all across, because people were to the point and the things came up. And what we believe that things cannot be done in absentia, I think started happening. People started using emails, the scans, and all those things more effectively. And as important as even the loan documents, okay, force the banks to really look at the tech solution as to how we can get the digital signature of the customers on the agreement. And that was the last thing to happen. Means every time we would walk up to our legal and the compliance guys, and they would say, no, that's not possible. You need to have one on impression on the agreement final. So I think all these things, which really has changed during this, and having not destroyed the human or the human angle of dealing with people. Because we had call centers when calling customers and saying that, do you need anything? When we made a list of senior citizens and talk to them saying that, oh, you need cash to be delivered, and the kind of responses that we got, some of those customers when they were really in trouble with in the hospital, and how we went through our CSR way to help them. I think all in all, it made a very, very different human experience for all of us.
Thanks, Virat. And I know we are out of time, but I'm sure we could have gone on for a lot longer. But I echo the last word that, being human, showing that we are human, making sure that we are able to not just for our customers, but everybody, this whole society that we touch. I think it's brought this crisis has brought the human race together, and for that, I will be eternally thankful for this crisis. We will come out of it. We are not out of it yet, but we will come out of it, and hopefully we'll come out of it better. Thank you very kindly for your time and your comments and your experiences. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sapnesh.